Hello, it's Pam Craddock and the Liberty Ladies, and we are back for another dive-in. Mrs. Producer and I are in LaGrange today, and we are talking to Daniel Cameron. Thank you so much for coming.
Pam, thank you, and excited to be with all your viewers today.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell a little story on Daniel. He may not remember me, but when I first met you, it was probably 2022, and it was the LaGrange Rotary Club, and I was working on election integrity at the time, and I was working on trying to be the grassroots activist that got a state AG to sign on to this case, and it was a great case. It was an embellishment of Kim Paxton's case that he had filed before January 6th, and then, so this was Kurt Olson's case.
Right.
And you spent probably 30 minutes talking to me, but you listened to what I had to say. And the point is, I was a constituent, and you wanted to hear what I had to say.
Absolutely.
And so that is a big deal for a lot of folks, because most politicians can't wait to get rid of you, get you out of their face. So with that,
Pam's very convincing, though. So
he did let me send him the case file. So with that, Liberty Ladies question with boldness, and we keep reason firmly in her seat, and we trust but verify. So, why do we trust you to be our junior senator?
Well, again, thanks to all that are watching at home, and understand there might be a few more viewers today because of NTI, and some folks are at home probably with their kids, and so hope you're having the opportunity to enjoy the little ones, but also maybe tune in as well. Look, I think you can ensure that I'm going to have your best interest in Washington because of the track record that I've built as the Attorney General and someone who has stood for the values of folks all across our 120 counties. And I think that's common sense values, ideals that very well began at our founding. I think all the time about, our two little boys, Theodore and Bennett. We've got one on the way in February as well. But
do we have a name yet?
Can
we break some news?
Mackenzie, I got to let Mackenzie do that instead of, myself. She would, I think she, as most of you all can, attest, you all know that Mackenzie is my partner in crime, if you will. And so I'll let her break that news when she's ready to do it. But we look at those two boys and think we want them to live in a country that is standing firm on those founding ideals that are to ensure that this country continues to be based on merit and opportunity. It's in a country that stands firm for law and order, that stands firm for the ideals and principles that most Kentuckians live their lives by. And I think I've got a good track record of having done that as the Attorney General here in Kentucky, standing for constitutional rights when we had a governor that was shutting down our churches and telling you couldn't leave the state without quarantining for a period of days. We went into court and got those things overturned.
I'm going to get triggered.
Yeah, vaccine mandates from the Biden administration. We went into, in fact, I just met a gentleman down in Jamestown, Kentucky, in Russell County, and he said, "You don't know me, but I want to say thank you because I think he said his niece's job was in jeopardy because of those vaccine mandates, and the fact that you got them stopped, such that the federal government couldn't force the state to require federal or vaccines related to federal contractors was a big deal for their family." So, though there are instances in which we've stood up and done what's right time and time again, and I want to take that to the United States Senate and have the opportunity to be the junior senator from Kentucky.
All right. So given some of the constitutional stuff, where do you line up with your senior senator, Rand Paul?
Well, look,
fiscal hawk.
Yeah. So I think it's important, as Senator Paul has noted periodically, that we've got to get our fiscal house in order for future generations. I think that's critically important. I think what the House and the Senate started on is a good path, but we've got to do more. And, I think we have to acknowledge that, and that'll be part of my priority, is to ensure that we're getting that House in order for future generations. Again, for our two and the one that's coming in February, for kids and grandkids all across this Commonwealth and country. And so, I will certainly have a good working relationship with Senator Paul. He's a friend, and I'm fortunate to call him that. And his state director, Rob Gibbons, has become a dear friend as well. And so,
Rob.
yeah,
We like Rob.
Love their team. I like Rob too.
We like Rob.
And so I will certainly have a good relationship with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Which is always good. It's never good to have senators at odds.
Right.
But speaking of odd,
yes,
Mitch McConnell, he's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a relationship with him. You want to just let our ladies know kind of what that's about? I mean, that's one of the things your opponents like to tag on you.
Yeah, well,
he hangs out with Mitch McConnell. He likes it.
Well, look, let me just say, from the very beginning, I've been my own man. I mean, I tell people all the time when folks were protesting on my front lawn, they weren't protesting on Mitch McConnell or Senator Paul's. They were protesting in Daniel Cameron's front yard because they wanted to pressure us into doing something that wasn't right by the laws of Kentucky, and I held my ground and did what was right by the laws of our state. When it was up to me to help fight some of the COVID restrictions that we saw, the Courier-Journal wasn't calling Mitch McConnell or Senator Paul the angel of death. They were calling, Daniel Cameron the angel of death. And I look, again, repeatedly, I've been my own man. I said that, I remind people, I said that in the 2020 RNC speech that I gave on behalf of President Trump. I said, I'm my own man. I make my own decisions. And, Joe Biden saying somebody's not black simply because they wouldn't vote for him is, absurd. And we should, as individuals, be guided by, for me, my faith in Christ and the Constitution and the values of our state. And that is what I will focus on. And, it's... when you make those sorts of proclamations or statements or declarations, it can sometimes get folks upset with you. At the beginning of this campaign, I said, look, if I was in the United States Senate, I would have voted for Pete Hegseth, I would have voted for Tulsi Gabbard, and I would have voted for RFK Jr. Yes. And some in the McConnell camp didn't like that. And I was told that their folks weren't going to be supportive of me and all those sorts of things, but that's okay. And if you look at the money that is flowing in this campaign, most of it is behind Andy Barr. I mean, it's as clear as day. I mean, if there's a candidate that is connected to anybody in this race, you can just look at the money that is flowing to Andy Barr, and it's all a lot of McConnell money. So look, that's okay. And again, we've got a small team. I'm thankful for Atlee, who is here with me right now. My wife is working hard. I mean, you don't know how many Christmas card stamps she put on envelopes over the last couple of weeks. I mean, I think we pushed out 750 Christmas cards and all those sorts of things. I haven't even sent one. Yeah. Well, so it's a team effort. It's a small team, but we're grateful for the folks that have encouraged us and prayed for us along the way, and that's what I commit to folks here in Kentucky. And whether it was my AG race, the governor's race, this race, you can be assured that when you vote for Daniel Cameron, you're voting for Daniel Cameron. You're not voting for any other person. And know with 100% certainty that I'm going to fight and stand for you as the next senator from this Commonwealth. In my interests, in my concerns, and my values will reflect your values, interest, and concerns. Oh, that sounds, yes, that's good. Yes, that is good. That's very helpful because the sloganing is annoying. And you get so many months into the sloganing with some of the candidates that have come out there, some of which I appreciate a lot, but I have a point of view about, and I'm not going to share that here because it's not fair. I understood.
But to have someone say, I'm going to be my own man and follow my values. So help us understand who Daniel Cameron is. Where did you come from? I know you lived in Louisville for a while, but you were born and raised somewhere else?
Great.
Off land of Owensboro?
No. So I was actually born in Plano, Texas.
Oh, wow.
So my dad at the time worked for Federal Express, and they were in Dallas. My parents were in Dallas, and was born in Plano. But in the time from when they knew I was coming to birth, he had been moved to Elizabethtown with the FedEx office there, and so I was born on November 22nd.
Okay.
And
Happy birthday,
yeah,
belated.
thank you. Of 1985,
Okay.
and they literally were just waiting on me to be born. So I was there roughly 2 months, and then we all moved up. My dad was basically already in E-Town, so we all moved from Texas to Elizabethtown. So I spent my formative years there. So
Okay.
my parents owned a small business. It was a coffee shop, and I tell folks all the time that, probably at way too early of an age, I was making, actually I didn't start drinking coffee until law school, but I was like my parents, which should have been a telltale sign that I probably shouldn't have been making cappuccinos and lattes, right? If I didn't know what they tasted like, I probably shouldn't have been making them, but they humored me and allowed me to do that.
Okay.
And so my parents always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So the business started as a water company, which you see those water jugs in offices. So they started there, ended up selling teas, and then evolved into coffee and sandwiches. And it was called Zach's Coffee. And we got to see a cross section of the community come into that business, and built a lot of relationships like that. Played football and ran track. And
what position did you play?
Well, in football, I was played safety in special teams, and then when I went to U of L and was a preferred walk-on there, I played safety and special teams. But I tell people all the time.
No idea you played football.
Well, there's a good reason, because you never saw me on the field. I tell people all the time that play is a very generous word. I spent a lot of time rooting for folks that were a lot more talented than I was.
So they used to have a quarterback that wore the number 11 because he literally could not see over the line.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about.
Who?
Strand.
Okay. Oh yeah. Back in the yeah.
I don't want to. And he's a good man. I'm sure he's a good man. I graduated from the University of Louisville.
Okay, nice.
1989.
Yeah.
So go Cards.
Yeah.
And we're on the bandwagon still. I'm a bandwagoner. I only get interested if they're winning.
Well,
and so
we
got a bowl game to go to.
I know.
And then we kind of put the bandwagon away and we get it back out for tournament time in March.
It's a surreal world right now. I mean, when I was playing, Jeff Brom was there.
Yes.
Greg Brom was there.
So you know those guys.
Yeah. So Brian Brom was obviously our quarterback then.
Yeah,
so to see them,
yes.
back is pretty special, and to know that
this world of I don't understand how the athletes come and go, and
sure.
You think you've got a team, and then it's Saturday, and like, wait, what happened to our team? Well, they all went somewhere else.
It's a different world right now with
weird.
With the differences on that front. But yeah, so I went to law school, undergrad.
So why did you go to law school? What did you want to accomplish as a lawyer?
Well, you're going to think this sounds trite, but honestly, so my mom, and a lot of credit over, you will hear me say, it goes to mom, a praying mom who was constantly on, and still is constantly on her knees for me. But I remember, as a kid, there were two things I like to do. I like to eat and I like to talk. And my mom said, Daniel, you like to run your mouth. She didn't say talk. She said, you like to run your mouth. And you like to eat. You're going to have a good job. You should probably think about being a lawyer.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, maybe I should. Okay. And so I had a distant cousin, Eddie Hardaway, who was a judge down in Panola, Alabama. But beyond that, we didn't have many lawyers in the family. But I was interested in what he did as a judge. And,
did you ever see yourself going that route, going judge?
No, I didn't. I just knew that, participating in the law was something that I was interested in at a pretty early age. And so when I was in undergrad, I always knew that, my next step, God willing, will be to go to law school. And I love law school. I mean, you get to learn sort of how laws are created and, about different jurisprudence and why it's
What was your favorite class?
What was my favorite class?
Did you go to Brandeis?
I did. I went to Brandeis.
Okay.
Yeah. My favorite class, honestly, there's a professor there, Lisa Nicholson, who taught a lot of different courses. But my favorite course was a negotiations class that we had. And at the end of the course, we got to do like a mock negotiation, and our team ended up succeeding in that mock negotiation. So we got to go to lunch with her at the end of the year. But that was my favorite class, was this negotiations class, because you had to go in prepared. You had to be ready to have an offer and then a counter offer and ultimately come to some conclusion. So that was and then probably outside of that, you do constitutional law, which was fascinating. I'll tell you though, in law school, you get a lot of professors that have a leftward lean, so you got to be
Right.
you got to be focused
Right.
on what you're being taught, because it
You
could
have
be
to
a
trust but verify.
trust but verify, and then also seek
Keep
out.
reason firmly in
Yeah,
receipt.
you got to seek out the other side of the argument or the rationale for decisions, which they're. So yeah, loved law school, clerk for a federal judge.
Oh, fun.
After that, for a couple of years, Greg Van Tatenhove, who's
Okay.
a federal district court judge, his at the time his duty station was London, Kentucky. So we lived in
Okay.
Lexington, drove to London. Did that for 2
London's
years.
a great town.
Yeah, London is a beautiful town.
World-class chicken festival.
World-class chicken
Biggest
festival.
skillet in the world.
Oh, yeah,
You see
and then-
when you open it up and they put all the chicken in it.
Yeah, and then when I was clerking, and I tell this on the campaign trail, is that I'm probably the only candidate that worked in London and bought a suit at Bob's department store, and so that was a big hit when I was. But yeah, did that for clerk for 2 years, then came back, worked at a law firm in Louisville. I went to Washington, came back, worked at another law firm, and then ran for attorney
So
general.
are you ready for the art of the deal then? So when
Oh man,
President
President Trump
calls you
called
up
me up. That's exactly
and
right.
says,
Yeah, I'm ready.
"Daniel,"
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to do it. I told you. All right. So what lessons do you think you've learned? Let's just switch gears a little bit. Let's
Sure.
talk politics. Let's
Yeah.
talk running.
Yes.
Okay. You were in the governor's race.
Yes.
And full disclosure, I worked on your campaign.
Yes.
And so I did some door knocking,
Yeah.
which that's my personal focus group.
Right.
I listen to people, hear what
Right.
they say, and when they speak, and they're not sticking their dogs on me. But so, what did you learn from running that race?
Well, what I learned is you can't trust polling. That
Mm-hmm.
you got to work really
I haven't
hard.
seen a state poll that makes any sense.
Yeah. So the last poll in the governor's race, it was the week before the election, the general election, had me up. Oh, you need me to
The
move
sun
this way?
keeps
Oh
getting
yeah.
in your face.
Had me up one, but assumed like 42% turnout. We ended up getting 38% turnout on the day of, and just couldn't overcome the early voting. So you got to have, Pam, to your point, you got to have a great ground game, and you cannot take anything for granted. And that is what we're working on this time, is a recognition that folks on the ground can help you in ways that simply a television ad doesn't necessarily always help you. And you get a sense of where people are on a range of issues and what they care deeply about. And so what we have done in this campaign is really focus on building out our county teams. And so we've got great county captains that are helping us this time around to ensure that we are understanding the pulse of every county in Kentucky. And that's critical. And again, I think that one of the other things I learned from the last race was just letting people get to know me better. I think a lot of times in these races, you can sort of forget that, folks might not know your background or know,
Because I told 5 counties
Yeah.
ago, I told those
yeah,
guys
right.
all my stories.
That's exactly right. And so that's something that I'm more sensitive to this time as well, is just getting out and talking to as many people as I possibly can. And, I'm hopeful that people see and I say our because my wife is just as involved in this, see our collective heart as a family and what we care deeply about. And, anybody that says when they go to Washington they're going to have all the answers is not telling you the truth.
No.
I honestly think, most of the answers are going to come from you people at home as we think through critically of different issues that, Kentuckians care about, but then on the national stage. And so that's something that I'm very, very focused on this time, is just making sure we're getting to as many people as possible and telling them about the campaign.
So I want to ask you about some of the issues that we're looking at right now. So, for example, our great state senator, Lindsay Titchener, just presented to the Education Committee, I guess the combined group of them in the interim, her DEI bill, which intends to defund DEI, and she's focusing on the amount of money that school boards are paying for it, and the test scores, the results. And of course, that one lady who was interrogating her went viral.
Sure.
And that's kind of like, are you people really still out there? Yes, they are. So when you think about it from the federal level, so President Trump has Linda McMahon working to shut down the federal Department of Education, block grant money back to the states. Where do you see the Senate playing in that?
Well, I think the Senate should be in the position of helping, facilitate the resources and dollars making it back to the state. I think the block grant idea is the best way for local control of these resources to be in the communities. As I've said time and time again, I'd much rather prefer Lindsay and folks in our General Assembly making a decision about those dollars as opposed to the distant people in Washington, D.C., whether it's the administrative state or anyone else. Local control, local focus, local interest should be always the priority. And that, as a senator, is what I'm always going to advocate for, is that the hardworking, good folks here in Kentucky get to make a decision about those resources as opposed to Washington, D.C. Now, President Trump is doing some fantastic work, right? I mean, he basically came in within the first few days of the administration and said, we're getting DEI out of our administration, right? And we're getting DEI out of the federal government.
Out of the military.
You see Pete Hegseth that is working on that as well. These are all good steps. I mean, I'd say, I've said it 100,000 times, is that we need a country and a society that's a colorblind society. We don't need a country that is built on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need a country that is built on merit, excellence, intelligence, and integrity. And so that's what I'm focused on as a senator, is making sure those dollars and resources gets back to the people here so you all can make the decision as opposed to Washington. So anything I can do to help facilitate, I'm going to be all for. And of course, I mean, you noted, I mean, there's some, what I think was lost on conservatives, particularly over the last 5 to 6 years, sort of we let our institutions get away from us. Yes. And it honestly started even before that. We let these institutions sort of be taken over by the left. And the thinking that you saw during that committee hearing is emblematic of what we see within our institutions. And that's got to change. And how that changes is when people, men and women of good faith, who want a society that lives up to the ideals of our founding, with those people making sure those resources are going to the right things. We need folks in our schools, our kids, focused on reading, writing, and arithmetic, not social engineering.
Right.
When we focus on that, we're going to be a much better society, and one that is achieving,
do stuff
and doing well.
I mean, just this notion that, and I don't know where I saw it or read it, and it's like math is too hard for African American students, so we just won't teach it to them. Yeah. So then, then they're not qualified for engineering jobs. They can't be astronauts. That's dumb.
It is. We've got to shift that thinking. Like what I tell folks, and there was a Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Brown Jackson, who a few weeks ago, and maybe a month ago now, said something to the effect that, being black could be considered a disability that needed to be addressed through Washington and through government programs. And I'm saying, no, we've got to reject that sort of thinking. We've got to reject that line of thinking and tell our kids that they are image bearers of Christ and they are beautifully and wonderfully made. That's what Mackenzie and I are telling our boys and, our friend groups. That's what they tell their kids, is that our children are beautifully and wonderfully made, can achieve anything.
Made in the image of God.
Made in the image of God, and can achieve anything they put their mind to. And I think that's what my parents instilled in me. My parents owned a small business. No one cared what they looked like. What they cared about is that my parents made good coffee and made good sandwiches. And that's what we're going to teach our boys.
So when you think about policy from your shop, you're going to have a shop.
Yes.
If you get elected, it's going to be your office. You're going to be directing policy stuff. What would you want your signature policy to be?
Oh, look, I think we have to be responsive to what people are feeling on the ground as I, talk to people. I mean, even in our own household, we're focused on or concerned about like how much money we have in our pockets to ensure that, at the end of the year, beginning of next, we're going to do our family budget. I know a lot of families will be doing that. You want to make sure you got enough money to buy groceries, buy gas, have a little left over for summer leagues for your kids and sports.
Saving it.
Amen. Saving it. So these are
Dave
all
Ramsey, save it.
Yeah, these are all like really important things that folks financial things that folks are dealing with. So that's something that, will be a priority for me, is like, how can we put more money into the pockets of our citizens? And then when you step away from that, what I think and care deeply about is having a secure southern border. President Trump has done a wonderful job in the executive branch of shutting down or at least stopping some of these illegal crossings, or I shouldn't say stopping some, basically just
all
ending it, right? These illegal crossings. But, this administration will be there for a period of time, but you've got to ensure that you've got representatives, whether it be folks in the House or the Senate, that are standing firm for a secure southern border, and that we have the funding and resources to make sure, because when we don't have a secure southern border, what happens is fentanyl makes its way into Kentucky and hurts our communities. So that'll be a priority for me, focusing on ways in which we can ensure that border is secure. The other thing that I've learned in my tail end as Attorney General, and something that in my job at 1792, that they're not being debanked simply because they have center-right values, or have, as I refer to as, just traditional values. Yeah. And so that will be important as well. And then I want to be somebody that's going to stand up for our law enforcement community. I say sometimes that can sound sort of, or we could take that for granted here in Kentucky. Yeah. 9 times out of 10, if, Sheriff Wakefield, we're in Oldham County, so if Sheriff Wakefield walks into a diner, somebody's probably going to pick up his meal. I remind people all the time that New York 25 years ago had a tough on crime mayor, and they had a tough on crime police chief. It had Rudy Giuliani. And again, they believed in a broken windows philosophy, meaning you address the small things, they take care of the bigger things. No one in their imagination would have thought 20 years forward, you'd have Mandami as the mayor, who has said as a position that he wants to reimagine the police, which we know is code for defunding the police. I hate when you reimagine. So we have to be vigilant on the front, vigilant for our law enforcement community, and want to assure I'm standing up for them in the United States.
I'll be interested to see if Kathy Hochul lets him get away with half of what he said.
It's gonna.
She already knows.
That's the problem with
the money is going to leave New York.
Yeah, well,
they're
that's
all
the problem.
Going to go to Connecticut.
Yeah,
and Connecticut will come the big.
Well, that's the problem with communism and socialism, is that they can promise you anything, right? They make all sorts of promises, but when the rubber meets the road, they can't commit to those promises, so they start scapegoating and casting blame on folks that have money and all those sorts of stuff.
So the 1792 exchange, you're working on that technically now, or did you have to resign from that to run?
So because it's a nonprofit,
right.
I'm transitioning out of that, but we'll be on the campaign trail pretty much full time.
So what is it? What does it do?
Yeah, so 1792 Exchange is a nonprofit that focuses on ensuring that corporations steer back to normalcy, that they get away from the social engineering that the left has tried to prescribe within our institutions, and that they get away from DEI and ESG related policies and just focused on making businesses do what they're designed to do, build and create the best products and provide the best customer service. So that's what 1792 focuses on. 1792 Exchange focuses on, and I was proud to be a part of that organization for a period of time. But what made that relationship so great was the idea that things that I worked on as Attorney General I could continue to do at 1792 Exchange, and so great platform to continue to stand firm for common sense values, to oppose DEI and to oppose ESG, and certainly we're grateful for the opportunity.
Awesome. So, Mrs. Producer, I think we're coming up on the sort of the tail end of our broadcast. So, do we have any questions out there?
Not at this time.
Really? So, folks, if you want to ask Daniel a question, as long as it's not weird or strange, we're happy to pass it along.
I've heard a little bit of everything, so it would not offend me, I assure you.
Okay.
Everybody's just like, yay, Daniel.
So, I hope it's not I truly don't like gotcha interviews because they're just not helpful.
No, not at all.
But I did hear a piece of news that I think would be helpful for you in the Senate.
Okay.
Over the weekend. So evidently, Powell, in anticipation of the Fed, in anticipation of a new Fed chair in the spring, has re-upped 11 of the 19 board members. So President Trump is going to have a dogfight all next year getting these interest rates down because he just went ahead, and it's considered, the gentleman who was calling it out works for the Wall Street Journal, and I can't remember his name, but evidently Powell just did this.
Was it Paul Gijot or Gijo? Or?
Maybe,
okay.
maybe. But so that's an issue. So when you think about, we've got Rand Paul, he's been talking about audit the Fed. You hear people like Chip Roy say, end the Fed. Where do you sit in the battles of the Fed?
Well, look, I think there certainly needs to be some level of accountability when it comes to the Fed and ensuring that, their practices are consistent with good faith. And you have to forgive me, I've not, read up on exactly what Chairman Powell has done. But if it was done in a way to
it's
undercut
it's not typical.
Typically, if it was done in a way to
Fed chair do it, and these people are all done. They re-up in March, so there was time. This was not necessary.
Well, if it was done in a way to undercut the president or circumvent the president's ability to, bring new people in or allow the Fed chair to bring new people in, I think that's a disservice to the country. Obviously, look, people are, desperately sort of looking at what's happening with the Fed and then economic policy, to make decisions for the future. I mean, I know people are sort of pausing on home purchases, different things, simply because they want to know what the Fed's doing. So yeah, I mean, I think if again Chairman Powell or anyone on that team was doing something to circumvent or undercut the president or the future Fed chair, I think that's a disservice to the American people.
Okay, so we have a question. Mrs. Producer says
okay.
We have a question.
Senator Lindsay Tishner asks,
love it.
Can you speak to the energy crisis with the incoming AI hyperscale data center? What is your opinion on the president's recent EO limiting restriction on AI?
Well, look, I think let me try to address this from a couple of ways. First, my perspective is that local control is always better than Washington control. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of the executive order. I understand from the president's perspective that a patchwork of different laws might make it challenging. And I think what has happened is they are responding to what California did. And the concern there is that particularly in a liberal presidency, this happened during the Obama administration, it happened during the Biden administration, is essentially anything energy related or any cutting edge technology, they give up, the administrations in Washington, when they're run by Democrats, give up control to California. So whatever California does, whether it's on tailpipe emissions, whether it's on flatulence for cows, whether it's, whatever, you name it, California ends up controlling the country. And so I imagine from President Trump's perspective, they're very concerned about allowing California to lead on this issue. Having said that, I think it's going to be really important for states to continue to have ability to make laws at the local level. And my hope is that what President Trump has done can be married with the decision-making authority of states. And so I'll have to look more closely at that, but that would be my heart is for states to continue to have the ability to make critical decisions about
infrastructure. So
right.
you had
and then
about
and then the other thing is on
natural resources.
Natural resources. And so what I've said and will continue to say is that it's my judgment that because we have coal, natural gas, and we might have nuclear in our future as well, that we can lead on the technologies of the future. There's no question about that, because what they need is an abundance of energy. Setting that aside, Oldham County needs to be able to make a decision for itself about whether the infrastructure is in place to have a data center. Same thing, look, I know they're going through this in McCracken County as well. McCracken County needs to be able to make a decision. My judgment, in my view, is that I'm excited that we're even able to have those conversations simply because we have coal and natural gas. And yes, when it comes to these companies, if they're going to come in they've got to be willing to pay for the upsurge or the increase in energy costs. It should not be borne by the residents of a community simply because a data center knows that they can get a lot of energy from Kentucky. So that's my perspective, is that if a data center comes in and the people of a community say, yeah, that's part of the condition of that should be, is that the community says, hey, the data center needs to pay for the increase in energy that it's going to be. We understand that there's energy here. I mean, there's a reason that a battery plant comes to Kentucky. It's because they can get low cost and reliable energy. Right. But that shouldn't be borne by the citizens in that community. It should be borne by the company that comes into that.
So as a companion piece to that, Andrew Cooper-Ryder has been covering and I think you worked on some of this as the AG. KU and LG&E have been selling us out for green energy. And so we don't have enough, like we have brownouts when we get 0 degrees weather and stuff. And so the coal-fired plants they've put so much regulation on those plants, they struggle to open up. So do you see you having a role, like working with somebody like Lee Zeldin and EPA to get rid of that stuff, or just deregulate the coal-fired plants so they can get fired up again?
Well, two of the strongest decisions that President Trump made was appointing Chris Wright as the Secretary for the Department of Energy, and then Lee Zeldin as Secretary of EPA, because they both lean into and believe that we cannot have a future built on energy independence if we block out coal and natural gas. And one of the big executive orders that the president rolled out was saying that the administration in Washington is going to do everything it can to promote coal production. That is a good start. It is a strong start. But to your point, Pam, the Obama administration and the Biden administration did so much damage on these fronts that unwinding the process is going to take the Trump administration and then, in my judgment, consecutive Republican administrations and folks in the House and the Senate working towards that same goal. Because what the Trump administration has primarily done is extend the amount of time that a coal plant has to be retired. So say the retirement plan was 5 years. The Trump administration says, no, we cannot cut off these coal plants because it's going to cause brownouts and blackouts, and we simply cannot have that. So they've extended the period of time that a retirement of a coal plant occurs. My view is that we need to get more coal plants online.
Yeah, let's go.
So the regulatory process has to be.
China's not slowing down. They got coal-fired plants everywhere.
And that's my other point on AI, is that if we don't lead on this issue, China's going to lead. And we know that when China leads on something, you lose all accountability, you lose all transparency. In the United States, we have a history of accountability and transparency. That's why we need to lead here. My hope is that we can reduce the regulatory burdens to ensure that coal production increases and that we get more power plants online.
Okay, Mrs. Producer, any more questions?
Yes.
We have about 5 minutes left, I think.
There's a parent that's been having issues getting addressed with IDEA and 504 plans, like special needs students that have issues getting support. And there's a disconnect between the federal law versus what state does. Is there a way that you could help give the state more power to address any issues that come up with special needs students?
I'd love to. And, to the extent, the viewer and wants to connect with our team, and I'd love to learn some more about this specific issue. But yeah, anything I can do to help ensure that there's more local control and authority that reflects the interests of citizens here in Kentucky, I'll certainly do. Absolutely.
Okay. And one other question. How do you feel about Trump going against people that disagree with him?
Well,
Congressman.
Yeah, it's a look. My hope is that President Trump. I mean, you see it with Senator Paul. I mean, Senator Paul is moving forward with some effort on health savings accounts. President Trump is very ecstatic about that. My hope and prayer is that this infighting ends and we're just able to focus on the peace plan that the president's working on, affordability for people here at home, get more money in their pockets. That's my hope and prayer, is that we can have some disagreements in the tent, but that it doesn't cause friction that creates disunity or division. My hope is that we are a cohesive unit, particularly as we're going into the 26 midterms. So that's my hope and prayer. But look, I it can always, be a challenge when people have differing views and opinions. And, my hope is just so, our party can come together.
Well, and it's good versus evil. Trump's going to do whatever Trump's going to do. But for the midterms, it is good versus evil. We as Republicans are good folks. We're people of faith. And we need to just knuckle down and say, no, the Democrats have not changed their policies. They aren't telling lies. They are saying everything they want to. And it's radical and it's crazy. And it's every bit as crazy as it was in 2024. They're not changed.
No, we've got to buckle down and be focused on winning and ensuring that, we've got folks that are ready to lead on common sense values, and it's my hope that I'll be up there standing firm for those.
Mrs. Producer, there was a topic that came up for discussion. It starts with an I. I'm not familiar with it.
Ibogaine?
Ibogaine. Yeah. We wanted to know about Ibogaine? Is there some context?
I can just riff on Ibogaine.
Oh, we'll just riff.
Like me to.
Riff away.
I assume this is where the question's coming from. So when I was the Attorney General, we brought in a lot of money for the opioid epidemic, and that meant wholesalers and distributors came to the table and said, "Hey, this is partly our responsibility, and we need to try to make Kentuckians whole." Now, it's not a magic elixir. It's not end all be all, but we brought in nearly $900 million to the state to fight the opioid epidemic, and I recognize Russell has brought in more dollars into the state as well, and
I think he's at $1 billion.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's just run with the ball, if you will. Part of what I did is the AG was set up basically a task force. We called it the Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission, and it was led by Brian Hubbard. And Brian came into my office one day. He said, "Daniel," and if you all know Brian Hubbard, I mean, he's got a heart as big as this room, and he cares deeply about the people of this state. And Brian said to me, "Daniel, it's good for us to continue to support the programs that exist currently, whether it's preventative or whether it's focused on, how do we get folks out of addiction, or how do we give them second opportunities for jobs and that sort of thing. It's good for us to continue to support those efforts. But I think there's another opportunity in addition to that, that is basically a plant that is referred to as ibogaine. And the plant, by my understanding, it numbs or even reverses some of the damage that is done by opioid addiction, such that you don't want it anymore. And Brian walked me through some of the analysis and different things. And at the end of that conversation, I said, "Brian, let's go forward with it." And money was put towards that. And we had a big opening ceremony. And then, since Brian has left the office, that is that is not an initiative that's occurring in the office anymore. But Brian is still continuing that work. So he's working in Texas on it. He's working, I think, in Indiana and a few other places on ibogaine. And my view is that we continue to support the efforts that, for instance, I know people that are in the nonprofit space that are dealing with parents and kids, and how do we talk to our kids about the concerns about using opioids. I know Russell, if I remember correctly, has got an effort that he's using influencers online to prevent, because we know a lot of our kids are online now, so he's using those influencers to prevent kids from even going down the road of drugs. All that is good. Ibogaine, based on what Brian has said to me and what I've heard from other people, could really be a game changer. And I know he's working at other states to potentially, and I know from talking to Lindsay and others, that there might be another effort moving forward on that in the Commonwealth. And so I support that effort. I had somebody, I was at a farmer's market. This was, back in June, July time frame, and walked up to me wasn't familiar with anything that I'd done in the office, but I heard Brian Hubbard on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh, wow.
And Hubbard mentioned that, I had greenlit this program in Kentucky in the Opioid Commission. And he said, man, thank you. He said,
Awesome.
I have a brother that isn't opioid addicted, but had severe trauma and PTSD from serving in the military. Yeah. And it has the same effect in helping rewind some of that as well. And so if there's anything that we can do to help, whether it's our veterans or people that are addicted to opioids, then I said, let's give it a shot.
So do we have any more questions? Because I have one last gotcha question.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So, a lot of couples, when they first get married, they do the Christmas traditions their parents, from their parents. So you get in the car and you drive to every cousin's Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
All that. So then you get married and you have kids.
Yes.
Do you have any new Cameron family Christmas traditions you would like to share with our young married folk out there that have kids?
Oh, wow.
Anything that your kids really love at Christmas time?
How much time do we have?
How much time do you want to give us?
Yeah.
12:17.
12:17. All right. So I love Christmas time, and I have a lot of great memories from my grandparents coming up to our house, and so you want to relive that through your children and give them sort of the best Christmas that they can have, and we have endeavored to do that. Again, Theodore in January will be 4. Bennett is a year and a half roughly, and we have started some traditions. So we do. I put a book together called The Cameron Family Christmas, and so there's like a checklist of things that we try to do. And it's all the things you think of for Christmas. It's see Santa. I have a Christmas cookie night. It's go to our church has several different services that you can attend, so we put that on there. What family can we help this year? All these sorts of things go into that book, and we scribble on there little notes about like what we did and all that. For instance, last year,
holding yourselves accountable.
Yeah. For instance, last year I was reading through it, and on Small Business Saturday we didn't make it out. I ended up going to a local butcher to pick up some meat because it was a small business, but our boys were sick, and I notated that in the little booklet. So those are big for us. The thing that we started this year, and again, like I said earlier, all credit is deserved and goes to my wife. She found a version of Elf on the Shelf that is called Finding Jesus. And so we, every morning, and I should say, it started off, we were doing it at night, but now we do it before the boys get up in the morning. We have Jesus, and we put him in different places in the house. And there's a little puzzle piece that goes in his robe, and the puzzle, basically the pieces have scripture on the back of them, and it tells the story of the birth of Jesus, and it's been really fun. We've got young kids, and so today is December 15th, and so we have 15 pieces of the puzzle. And I think I know what the puzzle is going to make. I won't ruin it if there are any children or any following Jesus participants out there. But it's really exciting. And again, Mackenzie found this, and it's similar to the Elf on the Shelf concept, but it just.
But it's not creepy.
Well, it puts in sort of.
I'm sorry, Elf on the Shelf reminds me of the NSA. Okay?
Oh yeah, no, but this is like allowing us to tell.
But Jesus always
tell the story of Jesus in a way that's kind of fun for Theodore.
So that's a big improvement.
And so we've started that, and we're really excited about that. And it's funny. I mean, we try to do it at night, but sometimes it's in the morning. So this morning I'm like rushing around, like, all right, I got to find the puzzle piece, got to put it in the robe, got to put, Jesus somewhere in the house that Theodore can find him. So that's been nice. And, we try to, go to E-Town and spend a day with my mom as well. And so it's a good time. It's a good time.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Thank
Christmas,
you.
ma'am. Yeah.
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas to you all out there. God bless you.
So, Mrs. Producer, if you'll shut us down. Thanks, everybody, for watching. If you have any questions you think of later, post them in the chat, and we'll make sure that Daniel gets them, and he will answer them.
Absolutely.
Just there you